A year ago, I was falsely accused of sexual assault and battery. Last week, I stood trial and walked out a free man. A year ago, I was falsely accused of sexual assault and battery. Last week, I had my trial, and I walked out of that courtroom a free man. I am posting this from my main account because I do not care anymore. I just need to say this to someone. Back in 2021, I started dating a girl, let's call her Emily. Everything seemed great, almost too good to be true. But then, an ex-girlfriend of mine, someone I had a nasty breakup with because I was an alcoholic back then, decided to get involved. She told Emily all kinds of things about me, things she claimed I did to her. Emily and I talked it through, and for a while everything seemed fine. A week later, things took a turn. We got into an argument and somehow it turned into us messing around and playfully slapping each other on the legs. What I did not know at the time was that Emily had a medical condition, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome method, made her bruise easily. A few days later, her legs were covered in bruises. She ended up telling people, including my ex, that I was the one who hurt her, but it was not true. It was completely mutual and neither of us meant any harm. I even have messages from her where she sent me pictures of her bruises and laughed about it. She literally said, "It is okay, babe. We were just play fighting." She even joked about how she liked roughhousing with me. A few weeks later, things were still going smoothly. One night, Emily went to bed early and casually said, "Wake me up in a fun way if you feel like it." A few hours passed and I figured, why not? I did exactly what she asked. She was into it. I was into it. When it was over, she told me it was exactly what she had wanted. She had even sent me multiple messages before that night saying similar things. I made sure to save them all. A couple more weeks passed, and then one day, while I was driving her home from work, she looked at me and asked if I would be okay with her sleeping with one of her female friends. I could not believe what I was hearing. I felt like everything we had meant absolutely nothing to her. That was the moment things turned toxic. I became jealous and bitter, and she started acting like she had no idea why. She could not understand why I resented her friend. Then came the breaking point. By early 2022, we were constantly breaking up and getting back together. The idea of her being with someone else was making me lose my mind. I stopped taking my medications, gabapentin, clonazepam, Latuda, mirtazapine, Vivancin, went days without sleep. I lost my job. I was spiraling. And then one night, in the middle of an emotional breakdown, she texted me to say she was spending the night with another guy. That guy turned out to be her ex-boyfriend. I snapped. I could not take it anymore. I tried to end my own life. The next thing I remember, I woke up in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines, my throat raw from getting my stomach pumped. I spent a few days there, lying in that bed, while she was probably out having the time of her life with her ex. When I got out, we tried to talk things through. Then, one morning, I caught Emily texting my ex-girlfriend. I immediately asked her what they were talking about and told her to show me. She refused. That was the last straw. I told her to leave. She refused. I warned her that if she did not, I would start throwing her stuff off my balcony. She laughed like I was joking. So I grabbed her bag and tossed it outside into the snow. She still did not leave. I grabbed more of her things, a coffee cup, her clothes, whatever belonged to her, ran through those too. Unfortunately, one of the things I threw was a container of yogurt. It did not hit her directly, but when it landed, the cheap plastic busted open, and some of it splattered onto her jacket. That, apparently, was enough to change everything. A few days later, she was still messing with my emotions, sending mixed signals, acting like nothing had happened. Then, out of nowhere, she filed a restraining order against me without even telling me. I did not find out about it until later. And even after getting that restraining order, she continued texting me. 5 days after getting it, she reached out on Valentine's Day. That day, I gave her an ultimatum. I told her she had to make up her mindather she was with me, or I was moving on. She called me, asking what I meant. I told her exactly what I had said. She told me I should work on myself more. I was not having it. So, I did what any guy would do. I went out with a girl I had just matched with on a dating app. It was my way of finally trying to move on. 2 days later, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, there were 8 police officers standing outside. Before I could say anything, they arrested me. The charges? Assault causing bodily harm, because of the leg bruises. Harassment, for allegedly calling and texting too much. Violating a restraining order, which I did not even know existed. They took me to the police station. At first, I tried explaining everything. I even offered to show them the messages, the proof that it had all been mutual. But the officer in charge cut me off and said, "Shut up, woman beater." At that point, I realized there was no point in arguing. I kept my mouth shut. Once at the station, I called a lawyer from a list they gave me. After that, they transported me to another facility. Since it was winter, I was wearing a thick jacket. While I sat in that holding cell, I took it off, looped the sleeve through the doorframe, and tied it as tightly as I could. I was done. I did not belong there. But of course the cameras caught it. Within seconds, officers rushed in. They slammed me against the bench so hard my head bounced off the wall. My neck could have been broken, but I guess I had been drinking my milk. The next morning, I went before a judge. They gave me a $1,000 no-cash bond, meaning I would only have to pay if I violated anything again. I thought I would be going home soon. Nope. After I left, the judge realized I had unknowingly violated a restraining order. So instead of sending me home, they threw me in jail. For 4 days, locked in a tiny cell, wrapped in a suicide blanket. For nothing. When I finally got out, I promised myself I would stay out of trouble. I kept my head down and stayed on the straight and narrow. And then Emily called me again. On St. Patrick's Day, she got drunk, called me up, and offered to take an Uber to see me. And she did. It was a terrible decision on my part, but I still missed her. At the time, I still loved her. She showed up at my place at 5 a.m, immediately smiled, and said, "Let's just pretend it is like old times." And we did. She stayed for 2 days. She told me she had already confessed to the police, admitted that she had exaggerated everything. She thought they would just make me leave her alone, had no idea things would get this serious. When it was time for her to go, she kissed me, smiled, and said, "Call me later, love you." And then she left. A few hours later, I heard a knock at my door. It was the police. Again. Apparently, she had gone and told them everything she admitted to me. But instead of fixing things, it only made them come after me again. Looking back, I should have known Emily was as good for me as drinking bleach, but it took me too damn long to figure it out. That was the last time we spoke. A week or two later, I was at my first court appearance when a detective tapped me on the shoulder and asked to talk outside. He introduced himself and said he was working with Emily, told me I would be hearing from him soon and that he already knew we had been in contact. Then he hit me with it. We're expecting to file more charges. A few days later, he called again and scheduled an interview. My lawyer warned me ahead of time he was probably going to arrest me for something else. But what? I had no clue. His advice was simple: stay calm and shut up. I showed up for the interview, and the moment I walked in, they told me straight to my face, "You are under arrest for sexual assault and another charge of assault." Now, I knew I was supposed to keep quiet, but I lost it. I told them the truth, again, gave them every detail, offered to show them the messages, the proof, the receipts. They did not care. Then, out of nowhere, the cop leaned in and smirked. "Did you throw yogurt at her?" I just stared at him. Then I laughed. I leaned back in my chair and said, "All right, I am done answering questions. I will wait for my lawyer to get disclosure." His face hardened, and he shut down the interview immediately. They let me go, and then I waited. For 1.5 years. And during that time, Emily did not stop. She took to social media and went on a full-blown smear campaign. She told everyone I was a violent, abusive monster. She posted my full name, plastered my face all over the internet, and made sure every person in my life saw it. Within weeks, I was completely isolated. For 8 months, I was a ghost. People stopped talking to me. Even old friends would not respond. The posts spread like wildfire, especially in my circle, the local music scene and hospitality industry. I was canceled. I barely left the house. I barely spoke to anyone. The only reason I did not completely lose my mind was because, thankfully, I had already started dating someone new before all this went public. She stuck by me, did her best to help me through it, but by the time I got my lawyer involved, it was too late. I should have hit Emily with a cease and desist the second she posted. But by the time I did, the screenshots had already been saved, shared, and spread. She deleted the post, but the damage was done. I was being publicly shamed because a damn yogurt container burst open near her during an argument. I almost died over this. And she got to go sleep with her ex like nothing happened. Seems fair, right? A month ago, my lawyer sat me down and gave me 2 choices. Go to trial, 20 grand, and that is on top of what I already paid. Plead guilty to 1 charge of assault, the yogurt incident. I knew my answer before he even finished talking. Not because I was guilty, because I knew the justice system is broken. Fighting everything versus taking the hit on one minor charge and having it wiped off my record in 2 years? No brainer. So I took the deal. Now, I have to check in with a probation officer once a month, but other than that, I am finally free. And this week, I made a decision. I am done being miserable. I bought music recording equipment, grabbed some games I have been waiting to play. I have been thinking about telling my side of the story on social media, but honestly, not sure if I should. Maybe it is better to let it die. Yesterday, I went to the store, no hat, no mask, tattoos showing, and for the first time in forever, I felt free, like I finally got my life back. And that, my friend, is why you never get involved in a messy situation. Thanks for reading if you did.